Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I am here with.
Hi everyone. I'm Ruvaid Virk. I'm a freelance author for Paizo. I've worked on Pathfinder and Starfinder, and I'm here to talk about the Impossible Lands.
Indeed, indeed. Let's talk about the probably the most popular entry that you put into the book,
Yeah,
the Vishkanya ancestry. So what is it for those hearing it for the first time? What is it exactly?
yeah. So Vishkanya ancestry, they were an ancestry that's playable in 1E as well, but at their core, they're a snake-like ancestry, sort of like the Nagaji are snake-like, but these are a lot more human appearing, and their snake-like features are a lot more subdued. So they've got like a forked tongue, the irises, golden eyes, but other than that, from a distance, they look human. And probably their most defining characteristic is that they have this innate venom inside them, just like a lot of snakes have venom, right? And that's their big thing.
Hmm. It looks like first edition introduced them as almost like assassins. Um,
Yes, yeah. The first edition representation of Vishkanya really focused on them using their poison in combat, as you know, in uh, stealth, as assassins, as like hired mercenaries, and really leaned into that into that trope of poison users.
hmm.
And while that while that was, it's a big part of who they are, but it's not everything that they are, and that was a big part of what I tried to expand on when I poured them over to second edition.
Oh, okay. That's leads to my next question.
Yeah,
How is the culture expanded in Impossible Lands source book?
yeah. So in Impossible Lands, right, with the full ancestry, I was given the chance to really expand on like how they interact with each other, what their society is like, what their cultural values are like. All these details that aren't just they have venom in their blood, right?
Hmm.
So, um, from a historical perspective, in world, Vishkanya are from Vudra, and they have a historical precedence of being feared and prejudiced against, and all these really terrible, awful things, and that come from fear of, you see a lot of people hear about, oh, you have poison in your blood, that must be the work of an evil god, or
Hmm.
you're scary to me, and it's all these feelings, and they have a really unfortunate history of that. But and that history, obviously impacts how they're going to move forward. And one of the big things that I tried to focus on is how much of an importance that Vishkanya place on being able to make your own choices, being able to grow how you want to grow, right? Doing the things that you want to do, choosing the career that you want to choose, even choosing your own name. That and as well as just making sure that they have a record of who they are as people, right? Because when you deal with sort of persecution and things throughout as a people, you there's historical precedents of like losing sense, like the details of yourself, of your culture, and all of that. I tried to play into being super important to the Vishkanya, right? So they place huge importance on uh, family, on being able to, like I said, do the things that they want to do, pick their own names, and just live the lives that they deserve to live, and to the best of their own ability. So they still have poison in their blood, and they still use it, and but it's not entirely what they are, right? It's more of it's a detail that they can't really change, but they'll use it if they need to. But that there's so much more to the culture.
Hmm. Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the Vishkanya are actually they're not a Paizo creation. They're actually based on South Asian mythology. Am I correct about that?
Yes. So Vishkanya originate from the mythological term. It was originally Vishkanya, which roughly basically translates to like poison women. And in the mythology, uh, these were individuals who had poison in their blood, but they were kept as servants, as slaves, and used as assassins, and sent out, and they were generally very feared. And I would say they kind of uh, set a precedent for the like femme fatale archetype in media. Your undercover uh femme operative that is a like Black Widow and similar characters, and like Vishkanya kind of hold that role in the mythology. And it was obviously very important me to be as respectful to the original source content as possible. I mean, me but the a lot of it was focused again on just being feared and having them be uh assassins, slaves, being feared as being seductresses, right? And I just didn't want to like pigeonhole Vishkanya into that role. But that is what the uh Indian mythology historically is talks about them as.
Hmm. Um, I'm still learning more about South Asian mythology,
Yeah,
and it's incredibly vast. Um, what how would you say the South Asian mythology differs from other mythologies? Like everyone knows most of Greek mythology and now Norse mythology. What would you say? How does that differ? How does that world that everything about it differs from other mythologies?
sure. Well, probably the most immediate difference comes in the sheer number of deities and presences that are worshipped in like Hinduism, for example, right? And there's this cycle of rebirth, and that is very important. And one part that can get kind of complex is that um, different deities have different like aspects of themselves that are represented as other deities. So there's a lot of interconnection, a lot of complex stories with these deities and in the mythology. And the mythological archetypes of the stories are obviously, they follow different tropes than Western mythology, right? So you have like in Greek mythology, journey of a hero, and and there's uh tropes and stories that you can tell are like inspired by this event in Greek mythology or Norse mythology, for example. And uh, South Asian mythology absolutely has their own, but they get turned on their head in comparison, or have completely different lessons that are being taught. There's a large focus usually on like the um, the presence of like animals and nature. So like Vanara, who are also in Impossible Lands, they're also based on a on a mythological presence. And so it's a very, very complex and very interesting tapestry of stories and interconnectedness that spans thousands upon thousands of deities and stories. And that changes everywhere you go in South Asia. Like you have some aspects of Hinduism that were even adopted into Japanese Shinto beliefs as well, because of just how big and how vast that the belief system is. So I definitely recommend anyone who's interested in doing some study. Like it's extremely interesting. There's so many stories, so many uh, really, really just I can't express just how exciting it is as a mythology. And like obviously everyone loves Greek mythology, loves Norse mythology, but there's a lot of room for inspiration and things from South Asian mythology, I'd say.
Hmm.
you know. I feel like I'm rambling, but it's really cool stuff.
Then this is a great segue to talk about the Impossible Lands. So it looks like, from what I've seen so far of the art and what I've heard, some of the summaries and descriptions of the book, that this book is heavily influenced by South Asian mythology, and it's also like kind of mixed in with other things too. It looks like there's, correct me if I'm wrong, like steampunk cowboys and a ghost nation. What is the Impossible Lands exactly?
Yeah, so the Impossible Lands is a region of Galarian where the nations have been heavily influenced by like uh a really powerful magics over the course of their history. And that represents itself in different ways. Like you said, Geb is is an undead nation that primarily, zombies, liches, etc. Hang out in Geb. You have Alkenstar, which is a steampunk full of guns, motorcycles, and dwarves that kind of run that whole archetype there. There's there's Nex, which is a like super powerful magic focused country, and they're like at war with Gab, and they've been at war for however long. And in between them, there's an area called the Mana Wastes, which magic doesn't work very well, and that's because of the war between them. So you have things like mutants and magic working weirdly in there. And then you have Jalmaray, which is the South Asian inspired area, where you have uh, colonists from Vudra, again the South Asian inspired continent that came over to this island, and settled there. You also have Bopan in the Impossible Lands, which is like very heavily Fey influenced, and all the people there are like, they have like animal heads, and they um, have place a large importance on just their connection with the Fae, and also kind of just hide out. No one really knows where their island actually is, because they don't want people coming in and messing up their home and what
Hmm.
have you. So just lots of really high magic stuff and things that have been around for centuries, that have influenced how these countries and how these places function currently.
Oh, okay. Now you've written, looks like, a lot of different things for this book besides the ancestry. Looks like had some deity entries as well. I love the gods
Yes.
in Galarian.
Yes.
What can you tell us about? Hopefully, I'm pronouncing them right. Shamidu and Ragia.
Yeah. So the you can, however you pronounce them is correct according to Paizo, because that's why they don't put out pronunciation guides, right? Um, Hamidu, which is the how I pronounce it, is a goddess, or a deity just inspired by, again, South Asian mythology. They are a combination deity of like, they're like a fertility deity and a protector of nature and the wilds. They have four different aspects to them, which is represented by four faces that you do cycles through, depending on on their mood and how much you've pissed them off. Um, and they place a large importance on making sure that animals and nature aren't being destroyed or poached, and that children children, orphans, and the like are being taken care of when they have nowhere else to go. So like temples and shrines to Hamidu will be like safe spots for travelers and children, and they'll usually have like a small menagerie of wounded animals that they're caring for, or just to have. And she's also the protector of uh, a tree called I'm trying to remember. um, Kalpaventi. It's a deific tree that basically is like a tree of immortality and healing, and it's guarded by animal protectors that were given intelligence and abilities by Kamidu, and worshippers of Kamidu will often like go try to find it, right? And if they can prove themselves as being, you know, particularly exemplary, faithful, you know, they might just be granted the gift of eternal health.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah, but like healing, fertility, and nature, and just protecting all of that is you know, all of which are pretty common themes found in the mythology. So Ragdia is another deity. That is Ragdia, I would say, is also an inspiration from South Asian mythology. I guess it's the closest inspiration I would give him is like the god Hanuman. But there's obviously a lot more. It's obviously not a one for one. But Ragdia is the deity that created the Vanara in world, and um, he basically hangs out on a mountain and you know, has reached like enlightenment and wisdom there. He's known for being fond of like pranks and tricks, but not like ill-natured ones that are designed to, like, you know, teach people a lesson or show someone like, you know, this is um you did this wrong. Well, I'm gonna, you know, play this prank on you so you understand what you did wrong and so you can improve. And his whole thing is being able to find your way through life to you know, use humor and just become better, right? Reach enlightenment as you go through life, and um, all the while making sure that uh, people around you are that you know that you're spreading joy and happiness. And um, it's because he's a god that spent a lot of his you know, younger days fooling around, and now he's enlightened and sits on a mountain.
Mhm. Okay, and it looks like you also wrote some maybe some adventure scenes in this book as well.
So I did. So I wrote some monsters in the
Mhm.
bestiary, the Ratajin and the Kashrishi. Um, and then yeah, and then about half of the Niswan section of the city in Gelmare. And yeah, and then the adventuring part in there, which is the new equipment, new weapons, and a expansion to the Student of Perfection class arc, or not class, just archetype,
Hmm.
that was released in Advanced Player's Guide, I believe. So
Okay.
that's more character options in there. Um,
Okay. Excellent. Oh, sorry. You're still looking.
yeah, no, taking a look real quick, right? The Seru familiar is a new familiar that players have access to. It's a little blue elephant that's very cute.
Hmm.
Um, and there's new weapons, all of which are the ones that I wrote are again, you know, pretty inspired by South Asian weapons and influences, and new focus spells and feats for the Student of Perfection archetype.
So before we wrap up, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Um, if I only had if I was running a game and I only had the Pathfinder Second Edition core rulebook and
Mm-hmm.
this book, The Impossible
Uh-huh.
Lands,
Yeah.
and you were one of my players, what character would you make?
Well, what character would I make? Oh man. You know, I want to make I think absolutely make a Vishkanya. I would try to make a poisoner character, because that's something I wanted to do for a very long time. You know, a probably a rogue that focuses on applying poisons and stuff to their weapons, because the Vishkanya have an ability, that gives them an innate poison they can use X amount of times per day. So it kind of lends itself to that sort of character. Um, so I mean that would probably be my first pick there.
Mm,
A Vishkanya rogue that focuses on poisons, but then on the side they do performances, they do performance dances, just when they're not adventuring. They
mm,
go they go and hang out and try to do like musicals and or perform on the street.
mm.
Yeah.
Is there anything else about the book that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to share?
uh Man, the book the book is so cool. It's everyone involved did such a great job. I highly recommend checking out the Bopon section. It was kind of a surprise. Like, I didn't even know it was going to be in the book before it released. So it's very cool. It follows the stories that were introduced in Pathfinder Society Season 1 of Second Edition, and it plays off that. So that's a really, really cool place. I would say that there's something in Impossible Lands for pretty much anyone.
Mm,
There's room for people who love magic in next. There's room for people who wanna be a skeleton or a zombie or do other like undead stuff. In Geb, there's room for your steampunk cowboying, gun-toting outlaws in Alkenstar. There's room for people who want to explore, genies and elemental inspired campaigns and like catastrophes happening in Jean Marais. There's so much really, really cool high magic in the book and in these regions that I think anybody could have a great time, and being able to see some of the culturally inspired work is a big bonus.
mm.
Yeah.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
Wow. Very excited about this book. I'm always excited when there are more role-playing games, more role-playing books out there that look for inspiration outside of the traditional, European stuff that we keep seeing over and over again. So I'm really glad that this is coming out. So yes, to our viewers, thank you for watching. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.